Hello, Internet, and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club, where I get together with my promposal parrots and we read a romance novel and we talk about it. And this is the final hangout book club discussion of 2021. Not thank God it's over, but just like not book club, but like thank God this year is over, like behind us. I don't know how 2022 is gonna go, but we made it. We freaking made it. This month was this month was Tashai's turn to pick, and she chose "There's Something About Saweetie" by Sandhya Menon. I heard it a couple of times. There's like this video that's like 3 reasons to be riveted by "There's Something About Sweetie." So I will read us a little bit about the author. We'll read what the book was about, and since this was Tashai's pick, then Tashai has some questions, and we'll have a discussion, and that'll be a grand old time. Sandhya Menon is the New York Times bestselling author of several novels with lots of kissing, girl power, and swoony boys. Her books have been featured in many cool places, including the Today Show, Cosmopolitan, Teen Vogue, NPR, 17, Entertainment Weekly, and BuzzFeed. 2 of her books have won the Colorado Book Award, and her Dimpleverse series was turned into a hit TV show with Netflix India. I want to watch that. I have Surfshark. I can pretend I live in India and watch that. A full-time dog servant, Sandhya makes her home in the foggy mountains of Colorado. With a glass of wine at her elbow, she also pens adult romances under the name Lily Menon. Oh, I didn't know that.
She just recently transitioned to adult. So she only has one adult romance so far, and it came out this year.
What's the title? Oh, I've seen this book.
It's called Makeup Breakup.
Ooh, maybe I'll make us read this.
Maybe. Okay. So here is what There's Something About Sweetie is about. And this cover is so cute. Okay. Ashish Patel didn't know love could be so sucky. After he's dumped by his ex-girlfriend, his mojo goes AWOL. Even worse, his parents are annoyingly, smugly confident they can find him a better match. So, in a moment of weakness, Ash challenges them to set him up. The Patels insist that Ashish date an Indian American girl under contract. Per subclause 1A, he'll be taking his date on fun excursions like visiting the Hindu temple and his eccentric Gita auntie. Kill him now. How is this ever going to work? Sweetie Nair is many things: a formidable track athlete who can outrun most people in California, a loyal friend, a shower singing champion. Oh, and she's also fat. To Sweetie's traditional parents, this last detail is the kiss of death. Sweetie loves her parents, but she's so tired of being told she's lacking because she's fat. She decides it's time to tick off the Sassy Sweetie project, where she'll show the world and herself what she's really made of. Ashish and Sweetie both have something to prove, but with each date, they realize there's an unexpected magic growing between them. Can they find their true selves without losing each other? I read that. Yes. The answer is yes. If you're watching/listening, we're going to probably discuss the entire book. If you don't care about spoilers, listen on. If you do, stop here and read it and come back and finish this. Tashai, why did you pick this book for us to read? And then we can go round robin our overall impressions.
If I'm not mistaken, this was another one of those I'm going to Google popular romance book lists and read through it and try to find some that have reviews and have a little more representation. And in the list, they had When Dimple Met Rishi. And I went in to go look at that book, and I was looking at some of the reviews just to get a feel for it. And a couple of people said, oh, this was the stronger book.
When I posted the book on my Instagram, I had like 2 different people say like, "Oh, you picked the best one."
Exactly. That's what a lot of comments were saying. So I was like, okay, well, let me not pick this one. Let me get this other one. And it's not a series. Like you don't have to read them in
Yeah.
an order. So I was like, all right, let me check it out. And it's really cute and the plot sounded cute. So I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. And, not disappointed.
What are your overall impressions?
Overall impressions, I really liked the book. I thought it was really fun. It was cute. It was sweet. I liked the chemistry. I liked the main character. There's a couple things I made note of, just which will come up as we go through the discussion questions that I like kind of put together. But no, overall it was a really fun read. I enjoyed it. I wasn't like particularly, sometimes reading like teen perspective books, it's like, oh, but I wasn't like annoyed by Sweetie. I thought she was, a nice girl. And I was drawing comparisons a lot as I was reading with Fat Chance Charlie Vega. We'll talk about that when we get to questions. But yeah, I just enjoyed it. It was a nice light read. I liked the chemistry. I liked a lot of the different little parts of the book. It was enjoyable and I got through it. I thought there was going to be more drama, but I actually think there was other than the one like twist that always happens, which here I can see where the obstacle would have been a problem for me too if it had been me finding out that this guy that I was going out with was going on a secret hangout and didn't say anything to me about it. Like I would have been upset. So I it was plausible to me. Sometimes the twist is like, why is this person upset about this? But I understood it. So yeah, I really liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I think the mom stuff kind of threw me, and the fact that Sweetie is just so talented at a lot of stuff. And Andrea mentioned this um, at some point, so I wrote that down as a reminder because I thought she made a really good point. So that'll be a discussion topic for us. But other than the fact that she was like a little too extraordinary, everything else I really liked.
Drea, what did you think of the book? Just your overall impressions.
Yeah, I agree with Tashai. I thought it was really sweet. It was light. I really liked that it was sort of a cleaner YA romance. Because I think with YA is like tricky sometimes where like technically YA is supposed to be like 13 and up, but like most YA that you see, the characters are like 17 and 18, and it's very much targeted at like an older audience. And don't get me wrong, that's how old these kids were too, but it's the kind of YA that I think like younger kids who want to read some romance could pick up, and or just people who don't want like a lot of like graphic sex stuff in their books, can pick up and get this like romantic story without kind of a more like erotic side to it. Kind of the most that happens in this book is just like making out. And so I really like that because I've definitely had students in the past and like kids in my life that love romance, and sometimes I struggle to find books that were not smut, because that's not necessarily what the kids want either. They just want to be able to like read a romance. But anyway, so this was nice in that sense. I think it would very much appeal to a younger demographic. So yeah, I agree with what Tashai said. And then just like my extra thing is like, woohoo for like younger YA. And I don't know if that's how the author intended it to be, or if that's just the way she writes. And maybe all her books are like that. But in that case, then that's definitely an author I would recommend to say like middle schoolers who want to read romance.
I'm on the same boat. I thought this book was so wholesome. It got to a point where I was like, ugh, this is kind of boring. And I did talk to Dre about this. I said, I don't know, this book seems like almost anticlimactic compared to all the things that we've read this year. But I think the more I settled into what was going on with Ashish and with Sweetie, the more I was like, my goodness, I remember what it was like to like be this way in high school. You know,
You just like messy YA.
That's true. I think
Like
that
messier characters.
yeah, it was messier. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for telling me because I was not sure. But yeah, maybe it wasn't messy enough. So I was like, there's not enough happening
Yeah,
here.
they're not like, neither of these characters are messy at all. They're both like very upfront about what they want. They're like very like, honest about their feelings, and pretty much like the entire book. I mean, it's
no,
they're also just like respecting their parents and following the rules. And Teen Christina is like,
yeah, I definitely was like, there's not enough happening here. But then I was like, why does more need to be happening? I did really like that the characters had a real sense of self about themselves. I did like that they were doing like almost like practicing like creating boundaries with each other. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but mainly with how Sweetie was, you know, kind of very adamant about how she was going to be presenting herself and how she was forcing herself to, not forcing herself, but like reminding herself of her own self-worth. But then also Ashish and like, hey, like I'm on the rebound and I might not be able to give you like 100%. And them kind of like coming to, I was like, holy shit, this is mature as fuck. I would never have that conversation. As an adult, I would never be like, I'm on the rebound. I can't give you all of me right now. I'd be like, no, I'm here 100%, and then cry about it in the chat with you guys later, you know, until I was there, until like my actions like caught up with my emotions, you know. So I definitely thought this was really wholesome, really empowering. Young adult books don't need to be like a great example of how to be, but this is again one of those books that really showed, I think, young people making really good decisions about themselves, and then making good decisions regarding other people, like how to handle or how to handle how you mishandled someone's feelings, but more importantly, how to learn how to kind of come into yourself and, you know, embrace like the person that you're going to be as you're kind of like coming over that 17, 18, like I'm a new adult type stage in their lives. So for that, I think it's a really good book. Those are my 2 cents. To try, the floor is yours. What are some of the questions you wanted to go over with us?
One thing that Andrea had mentioned, I think when she posted about this on Instagram, that I thought was a really good observation was the fact that Sweetie, like I really like all the characters, but Sweetie in particular, and I think this happens more so with her than with Ashish, because Ashish is like a good athlete and like a good student, and that's fine. But Sweetie is like an amazing athlete, an amazing student, an amazing singer, probably an amazing baker, probably great with finances. And she's like, I started thinking about her as this like extraordinary fat girl, which kind of felt like, well, why wouldn't she be lovable and why wouldn't she be desirable? And kind of like, these are all the reasons why she's this amazing girl and she just happens to be fat. Like, you as a reader shouldn't believe what the mom is saying and you should 100% be on her side because she's just so amazing that all of this should completely help you overlook the fact that she also happens to be fat. And I thought that that was like, I can see where it was trying to tell you there's more to her than just what she looks like, but there was so much more to her than what she looked like that I was really kind of struggling to see how a person who might, you know, physically resemble Sweetie might read this and be like, oh yeah, I see myself in this character. And the reason the reason that it stood out for me a lot after I saw Andrea's comment is because I've read Fat Chance Charlie Vega, and there you also have a fat main character who was like, she was really good at school, but they didn't kind of blow up all of her talents. And I thought it was an interesting kind of parallel of main characters, and I just wondered what your thoughts were on like having an extraordinary main character who also happens to be fat versus a more like approachable main character who also who happens to be fat. And if you think that the fact that Sweetie was just so talented at all these things, whether it helped or hurt the story at the end of it all.
So I can go first. So yeah, I was definitely thinking about that, not because I necessarily thought it was unrealistic, because there are definitely people of all shapes and sizes who excel at like 10,000 things while other people only excel at one or zero. Like that's just life. Like some people get a shit ton of the talents. So I didn't think that was unrealistic necessarily, but what bothered me about it was that like that's what she would use in conversations with her mother. So her mother would be like, I don't want you to be fat because you're not going to run as fast. And she'd be like, but I do run fast. I don't want you to be fat because nobody's going to love you. Oh, but I'm in a relationship. I don't want you to be fat because you're not going to. And so it became sort of like a look at my successes in order to get over my fatness. Like that was how her discussions with her mom went. Whereas it should have been like, love me because I'm your daughter and not because, I can tick off this list of things that you think my fatness will prevent me from. And the only reason I thought that was just a little bit is because then like, yeah, obviously I'm not a fat person, but if I was fat and I was reading that and I did not think of myself as talented as Sweetie, then, I might be hesitant to have those conversations with people because I would be like, well, what am I going to use to, like I don't have all these things that Sweetie has. And so that's the only thing I didn't like about it, how it became, and I guess we're not like trying to be spoiler free here, but yeah, like that's basically how like that end conversation with her mom goes, right? Where her mom is like, oh, but you're right. Like these 5 things that I use to define success are things that you're already doing despite your fatness. I guess I was wrong, and so I didn't like that ending for them. Again, not because I don't think it's realistic. I feel like a lot of parents would do that, whether it's about fatness or something else that they don't approve of. But just, I don't know. I guess there's not like that many books with fat protagonists. And so I think it's like a fine line. Like I get where the author was wanting to show, hey, fat people can also be super talented. Here's Sweetie. But then it's like the line of like, it's also okay to be fat if you're not super talented. And so I think it's like a hard thing to balance, and there's no like right or wrong, it's just like me personally, I was like, I wish like she hadn't been quite as talented so that other people might not feel like under her level. But I also understand why the author wanted to just show that she's this like super cool human. So, yeah.
That was great. I'm glad you went first because I got to collect all of my thoughts. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I did get to a point when I was reading it where Sweetie definitely felt she was bordering on just like being perfect. And so I guess I feel one of two ways about it. I was on Goodreads, and one of my mutuals on there, I think Genesee Rickle, made a really good point about how the character or the author handles like the fat representation and the difference between body positivity and like fat acceptance, and a lot of these like terms that kind of like float around or whatever. And it's one of those things where I will just kind of read a little bit of what she wrote and then kind of continue. I think that she put, however, the author missed the point. Okay, hold on. While the author hits a lot of the highlights, fat is a neutral word. You can be both fat and healthy at the same time. Often when people are trying to be nice/helpful, they end up being nice/condescending and offensive, etc. However, the author missed the connection to healthism, and that the point is that being healthy is besides the point, that one's treatment should not be based on size or perceived on actual health status. So that's the end of like that little portion of her review. So I agree with that. I think that the author went above and beyond to show us that Sweetie was just a regular girl, just like the rest of us, but then like took it so much further to prove, yeah, she's fat, but like that's not going to hold her down, because look at how smart she is, look at how sweet and insightful she is, look at how fast she can run. She's fat and she can outrun a bunch of people. She can outrun her hot boyfriend. And I feel like that wasn't like super necessary.
Sing. She's also an amazing singer with
yeah,
a voice that can like stop traffic.
Exactly.
It's hard too though, because like the author like grew up fat.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know how much of this is like, you know, like her like rewriting, however, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm not gonna tell you not to, you know, but yeah, you're right. It's like a weird.
It doesn't seem like she's not a really balanced character. I think Ashish is a little bit more balanced. He doesn't have, I think it would have been interesting if Ashish had more body issues, like body perception issues, than he actually had. Like he never once doubts how attractive he is, never once. And I think that also the author personally, I don't think that this is the case.
Neither does Sweetie. Sweetie is so confident.
Yes. like, she's really confident. She's like very confident. Ashish is very confident. And I think the message is overall really positive, but also it has its like incidental downsides, right? So Sweetie is so perfect, you know, her fatness is incidental, and that doesn't always have to be the case with characters. Ashish's exes are all skinny and they're all hoes, and that's also like the other side of the coin of like, so you know, except with the exception of Celia, who we get to talk more with, or sorry, like have more time on the page with, you know, she's a cheater, she's like attractive, she's like skinny or whatever. And so what are we trying to say here, you know? And again, like she's just very confident and never once like thinks about his own body in the way that Sweetie does. And everybody is thinking about their bodies. Everybody is doing that. Sweetie has to do a lot more of it because she's getting messages not only from herself, right? From society, from her mom, from like, we see how Ashish's friends kind of like comment about her body being like, whoa, she doesn't seem like the type of girl that you would generally date. And they're basically saying, wow, like you don't date fat girls. And you know, that's how people talk. So we live in like fat phobic society. And I guess I feel like I appreciate what the author was trying to do by making Sweetie so cool, but at the same time like didn't even it out and didn't give anybody else like a consciousness of their own body and like a worry about how they would be perceived by people, or maybe how their own perceptions about their bodies might be flawed. I think maybe with the exception of the mom at the end saying, you know, I wasn't like the other girls too, and I don't want you to go through that. So yeah, it kind of does follow the tradition of like the fat female character, and like the disapproving mom, like not just with Fat Chance Charlie Vega, but with the Dumpling too. I think was like a really popular YA title where and Starfish, where you know we've got like this like beyond great human being who happens to be fat, and a disapproving mother who, you know, just wants what's best for them, and then they kind of learn at the end that you know, they should look past it, when reality is that no one is looking past it. Everyone is thinking about it.
All right, so my next question, and then we'll keep moving along. So I wrote, how did you feel about the fact that Ashish was like pretty much immediately attracted to Sweetie, considering that everyone in his friend group made such a big deal about the fact that she like wasn't physically his type? Like I think I was more caught off guard by this just because it almost felt like Ashish had never seen an attractive plus-size woman in his life ever. The way everyone was kind of reacting to him and reacting to the setup and stuff. And then he sees her and it's like, I didn't even get the impression that So Chris sent us like an illustration of them. That's really cute. And in the illustration, you can tell Sweetie is plus size. But based on the description, I didn't read her as plus size from his perspective when he saw her. And so I was just curious if you guys, how you guys feel about his like perception of her size, like his reaction to her, the fact that he was attracted to her like right off the bat. I'm curious about like I guess his experience of her and her size and like the way his character was written because I only ever really appreciated Sweetie being like a fat character whenever she was talking to her mom because her mom was terrible. But anybody else, other than like a couple comments from his friends, like it didn't feel like I don't know, like he was describing her and he very much stayed away from anything that had to do with her possibly being plus sized. And so I don't know. I don't know if that was just the way I was reading it. I was curious about how you guys like
I didn't think it was weird. Like I had mostly dated like really skinny people before I dated my first like very fat person. And if you had asked me like what my type is, I would have told you like lanky and tall and like so like even if you had asked any of my friends, like they would have been like, "What?" And then I just like met this person and I was like, "Wow," instantly attracted to them. Um so I didn't think it was that weird. I feel like he either might truly not have been attracted to someone who was fat before Sweetie, or he might have noticed people and thought they were attractive, but like just didn't make a comment to his friends about it. And so his friends were just going off of his like dating history. Because yeah, I feel like if you had asked my friends like back in college or whatever, they would have had the same reaction, like, oh, that's not who you usually go for, kind of thing. Cause I went from dating like super, super, super skinny people to like dating someone very, very fat. So yeah, I didn't find that part of it like super odd. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't think about it too hard either, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was just meant like as a testament to Ashish's character, but I also personally have had a similar experience. I think that in school, I didn't really do a lot of dating like in school.
Oh yeah, by school I meant like college. I did
Yeah.
high
So
school either. I was not an Ashish or a Sweetie.
yeah, no, absolutely. At least not up until like middle school. Like when I got to high school, like in middle school, I didn't like really have a lot of crushes. In high school, it wasn't until like the end, like 11th or 12th grade, that I really kind of started, dating. When I got to college, is I had I no, yeah, I have I don't know how to I have loved and have fucked fat people, and it's never for me personally been an obstacle. It's something that I notice, and then afterwards, like when you are having like a friendship or a connection with that person, or like a legitimate attraction, can happen. I don't think that I think that the scenario that Andrea has posited is like probably the most accurate one here, where it's like never really mentioned it to friends, but like never looked down. Again, she's just I didn't feel that she thought once about how how other people looked or whatever. But
I think that's I think the way you guys are explaining it is what caught me off guard because I don't believe that a teenage boy would think like this. Would be completely not affected or
yeah, and
would have no reaction. I think that's why it caught me off guard because teenage boys
Well,
suck.
to be fair,
Like,
he already knew that she was fat. So
he had
it
time to
wasn't a
prepare.
surprise.
Yeah, prepare himself.
His mom had told him that she was fat. So it's not like he was completely going in thinking that she was a certain way and then being like, oh, this is not what I expected. Like he did go in already knowing that
Yeah.
she was fat.
Even though he didn't voice those thoughts, like the people in his close circle of friends definitely thought it. Again, with the whole, she doesn't look like the type of girl you generally date, you know, like she's
And then trying to course correct the other girl being like, no, she just looks sweet. And it's like, is that what you were thinking? I think that's why it caught me off guard, is because parts of the book are written from like a teenage boy's perspective, and I'm like, it's too clean in here. I don't trust that this is real.
You're right. And
it's a real clean perspective.
There was a real effort on the part of the author to make things very idyllic, because obviously we're 3 grown-ass adults who can respect and accept people for who they are. But like we're not the audience for this, right? Like we can be the audience for it, but the target audience is like, you know, kids that are the age of these characters.
Yeah.
So I think having the character, at least the main character, the heartthrob, El Galán, like not react in a very kind of like affronted way to, you know, finding out that Sweetie was fat might not be realistic, but, you know, is a good way to show like, oh, that's interesting. I never gave people like this a chance. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You know, it's
Lead by example.
I do think that it was a very purposeful choice by the author, because there are a lot of romances out there where it is like, oh, I never gave you a chance because X thing about your appearance, and it wasn't until I got to know you, like whether that be like weight or any other like different, you know, thing. Like there's so many of those stories. Whereas here, like that's not part of the plot at all. Like we never doubt that he's into her. We never doubt that he's attracted to her. Like that's not the issue here at all. It's literally just like other, you know, the parents or whatever. And I think that was a very purposeful decision, where it's like you're never questioning his intentions or whether he's like at no point in the book was I like, oh, is he just pretending to like her? Like, no, I knew that he liked her, you know? And so I like that it was that kind of book, but I think that was very much that goes with what you were saying about like the first impressions, like because it was never going to be a plot issue, then it just, you know, didn't happen at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very low stakes. He knew that he knew that he liked her. He was not ashamed to be seen with her. I think also because she was an athlete, and you know, an incredible athlete. You know, but also like he was very verbal in saying like, I am physically attracted to. Like I was like, what?
Yeah.
That scene again, that did catch me off guard, and I was like, come on. But I also realized that by thinking that, I'm falling into like a fat phobic trap, you know, like, yes, it is reality. People will think that. People will have like those opinions about fat bodies. And it's okay it was good to see a character not have that reaction. Like I was like, oh, taken aback. But then I'm like, it's fiction, but this is also good. Like I was like, and like I got there. And I didn't doubt for a second that Ashish was like had a boner for Sweetie, you know? Yeah, I don't know if we answered your question, but I think that
yeah. I think this was a good like kind of delving into the idyllic scenario being written in this book, because we want to be hopeful that people are good people at the end of it all, and like, yeah, he would, you know, be a good boy. All right, I'm gonna pull off the other painful band-aid. The mom.
no.
I basically just wrote mom equals villain of book ? And obviously to me the answer is yes, because the way that they try to frame it is, I'm just looking out for you. I'm looking out for your best interest because I don't want you to be harmed. But she's so fucking terrible And I don't think the mom has any redeeming qualities. Even in the end, when they try to close that arc of the story and have her be like, I guess I'm okay with you dating this boy, like, the fact that her reasoning isn't even, oh, I don't want my daughter to get hurt, but it's like, my daughter's too fat to be dating this pretty boy. I just wanted to know your thoughts on the villainization of the mom, and if this felt, I guess, realistic. I mean, it must be realistic. There's terrible parents out there, obviously, but in this kind of book where it's like, oh yeah, like, I don't understand how Sweetie has any confidence, because her dad just sits there and doesn't say anything, and her mom rips her a new asshole every day about being like
Yeah,
a normal sized person.
I think that's why the author included the character of was it her cousin?
Yeah.
Who, just so that, like there would be someone in the family, making her feel good and confident. But yeah, I thought it was very realistic. I thought it was very realistic that the mom would frame it as, I'm helping you, when obviously she wasn't. And I thought it was very realistic that she wouldn't defend her to anybody else. I think honestly, so very recently before this book, I read Starfish. And so I think that's the only reason why I wasn't more shook by this mom, because the mom in that book is like this mom times 100. Like this mom is like toxic, but that mom is like straight up abusive. Like so I think like for this mom, I was like, well, you're a piece of shit. But, like compared to the mom I most recently read and like the last fat character book I read, I
I don't
like,
have to call CPS on you.
Yeah, that one, it was like, I mean, she was taking her kid in to like get surgery, like at that, and that character's like 11. So yeah, and that book had a lot of like school bullying, like really intense school bullying. So like for me, this book felt way more lighthearted. Like the friends in general are great. And like I said, the mom was like very toxic, but I thought not unrealistic. I think the one like in Starfish to me is like, I do believe parents like that exist, but I think they're more extreme examples. I think Sweetie's mom is like the middle ground kind of example. Like I think most parents who have fat children act like Sweetie's mom, where it's like, I have your best interest at heart. I'm just like, is that the choice you want to make at the restaurant? Like, think of your, like, so like, I think she was very realistic. I think that's how most parents are. And I mean, my sister's fat, and that's definitely how my family, specifically the the females in my family, not so much my mom, but my aunts and my grandparents when they were alive and stuff, like that was definitely the kind of comments that they would make. So to me, it felt very realistic. Terrible. And that's why I said, like, I didn't like the ending, because I felt like she came around, but really only because she was like, well, I guess I don't have any more arguments because you've accomplished everything that I've said you couldn't accomplish because you're fat, but you accomplished it. So I guess it's fine that you're fat, like that's kind of how it ended. And so that was really the only part of the book that I didn't like, was how it like ended with the mom being like, oh, well, fine, I guess. You proved me wrong.
To jump off that, I think that yes, that the depictions of the moms in all of these books, Dumpling, Starfish, Fat Chance, Charlie Vega, and There's Something About Sweetie, very accurate. And again, to various degrees. I think that
well, I mean, and all these authors are writing about.
Yes, but I also think that the conclusions are very unrealistic. I get why they have to be optimistic, why they have to be like there's a glimmer of hope, but ultimately that's kind of like where I kind of like disconnect from the narrative, where I'm like, okay, no, like definitely not. I think that someone who has fat phobia ingrained into their daily rhetoric with their child doesn't, like, we like to think that our parents can have like this moment of like clarity, right? And that's just not the case. It's just, it might be the case for some people, but for most people it's not. Most parents will
And
continue
I
to.
do think, sorry, no, I was just say I do, because I don't think you've read Starfish, right?
No, I have, but I know the
Yeah.
premise. I've heard of
Yeah,
it.
but I was just gonna say, like, if you do want a realistic portrayal of an ending, then I would say it's like Starfish, because
Yeah.
it doesn't get tidied up. It's like the dad finds out what's going on and is basically like, I'm gonna divorce your ass if you don't, you know what I mean? Like, so it like
Yeah.
goes in like a whole different direction, but that's
Right.
the only book where I've seen it go like that, where like the
Yeah.
other parent is actually, because I feel like in all these other books, everybody
Mom's
just like
like,
lets it
oh, I
happen.
get it now. I get it now. Like, I
Yeah.
understand. I'm no longer fat phobic, and that's not realistic. It's not realistic. And even in the case of Starfish, which I know but the ending, it's more like, I will amend my ways because I am threatened, because my heteronormative like stance in society is threatened, but not because internally I believe that it's okay for you to be fat.
Yeah, they start going to therapy, and which this mom needs therapy for sure. They need family therapy. I mean, it's the truth. Like you can't just, Sweetie, being the exceptional human that she is, I think is portrayed as like, I will forgive my mom and move forward. But I think like in real life,
There's a
they would
lot of,
need some serious family therapy in order to like move
yeah,
past all those years of.
yeah. Because even if mom has like achieved, even if mom has achieved this like personal milestone of accepting like true fat acceptance in her daughter, that doesn't mean that Sweetie has like gone over the trauma of having to grow up with a fat phobic, a very openly and like attacking fat phobic mother. So that's not the book that we read, obviously. Like, we're not talking about like a really realistic situation, but yes, in real life, like, they would have to go to therapy, even if mom was like, I'm okay with it, like, I totally accept you. Like, what's Sweetie might not always believe her when she says those things. And so it's like it's this thing where they both have to like heal and trust each other to in order to believe one another. We're like, yes, I am okay. I'm fat and I am okay, and that's okay, an okay thing to be. And then, Sweetie being like, yes, I am fat, and my mom does accept me despite years and years and years and years and years of her not accepting that. It's fucking
And
tough.
and the dad's passive as fuck too. The dad, not till the last like 4 or 5 pages of the book is he like, hey, by the way, I know your mom said all this terrible shit to you all these years, but like, I think you're perfect the way you are, and I guess I should have said something.
Yeah, that's like a very like I think the parents were very like in solidarity with one another, where they weren't going to step on each other's toes. But then it was it was also tough because they're in this lane, like this parent lane. They can't step out of that lane to defend your child. And I think it's a cultural thing too. I don't think that it's something that I'm supposed to be 100% behind or supposed to super understand. I mean, even as just a parent, like, I'm not a parent. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to have to co-parent. I don't have a partner that I have a kid with, like, it's really fucking rough to balance it. I get why maybe he wouldn't want to cause more drama between his daughter and his partner. But I do think that he could have been a little bit more supportive to Sweetie.
How did you feel about the like kind of arranged marriage aspect of it? Not really arranged marriage, but arranged dating, and like the kinds of dates the parents came up with, because I don't know how believable it was to me that his parents were shocked that they would think going to temple for a date would be a bad date, or going to visit his aunt would be a bad date. Like, how did you feel about the little like arranged
Well,
date part
I
of it?
thought it was more just like them covering their butt for when inevitably the other set of parents found out that they had okayed it.
Yeah, but
Like
you could
I
be
think,
like go on a date to the library. It doesn't but like, oh, you're going to this temple, you're going to this like ceremony, you're gonna visit your
well,
you
I think like they knew they were doing something very wrong. Like the whole premise of arranged dating or arranged marriage is that both sets of parents are coordinating it. So I think they were like culturally going against it by having it be a secret one-sided thing, and they felt bad about that and had to like overcompensate. You know what I mean? Like that's the only way they could feel okay about clearly doing something not the way it was supposed to be done. That was how I read it anyways.
Yeah, I read it the same way too. But then as I'm reading it and then thinking of like myself as a teenager and being like, yeah, I'm not going to go to the temple. Let's go to the beach and get naked, you know?
I'm laughing. They're just such respectful kids. They're like, yes, we'll
so
follow
good.
these
Yeah.
date rules.
They are both really, really good kids. And I think that's why the parents are able to set that contract and set those parameters because they are good kids, or at least the book posits them as good kids. Would my mom ever, I mean, no, probably not. But would I ever like agree to like date someone and then like still go against the contract? Yes, on principle, I would. I'd be like, whatever, I'm still gonna do what I want. Again, let's go to the beach and get naked. But yes, in order for them to like cover their own asses, they needed to think of like the most boring, safest Indian dates that could possibly be. But also, I think that they knew that Sweetie was a good Indian American girl and could potentially get Ashish to connect more with his roots. They don't know that he's like dealing with perfectionism issues, right? And he's like trying to be the best son, and because he feels like he can't live up to that, or his like older brother or sibling or whatever, that he just rather just opt out and not participate. And I think that, they're just like, hey, you can opt in, like we're not gonna fucking judge you, like we like you. We like you as a person, we like you as an individual, like you feel free to do the things that we do as well. And I think that the story sets it up that way as well, like you're okay, like you don't have to be the perfect Indian son. Sweetie is kind of like a vehicle in order to get him to that place of cultural self-acceptance. That's how the book at least puts it to me.
I think the book was trying to set it up like that. I think the parents definitely expected him to be a perfect son, though. Like, I don't think it was, yeah, like you don't have to be like us. I think it was you can be like us in like this way, or you can be like us in this way. I don't think if he had rebelled any more than he already did by dating skinny white girls, that they would have been kosher with that. Like, I don't think it would have been good. Like, that's part of why they ended up picking Sweetie in the first place, is because she was this like good daughter,
Yeah,
respectful of the
I
culture
would
and
say
all that stuff.
I would say like subconsciously like a safe option, right? Like a safe option for Ashish to date and not only be able to connect with his like culture and heritage, but also, I mean, the book didn't say this. This is me just kind of like extrapolating, right? But like it's definitely a safe option as a not fully American girl who is like so full of herself or something, like that might not respect her parents in the same way, and is not a good example, and like will put out, and is not of the body standards that, you know, that our society has come to accept for worse or for worser. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to put too much on the book either, because like that's just myself. Like of course they're gonna pick a fat girl to be his new love interest, because like she's definitely the safe bet that he won't
Well,
like.
I thought it was more of a personality thing. Like they were like, he's an athlete, let's find him someone who's an athlete, and they'll push each other to like work towards their goals. They're both good, so they're both athletes, they're both good students, they both have like good friend groups, they're both part of like families that have like strong ties in the community. You know, like that's more like how I saw it.
No, you're absolutely right. That's just me like reading a lot more into it than what was actually presented in the book. But I think that that's ultimately the reason why they picked Sweetie to be his
It's
but I did think it was like a weird endorsement to arranged relationships.
yeah.
I did think that it was definitely a weird endorsement, or like just kind of like a, what are you trying to say here? Like, yes, my parents do know best when it comes to my choice in partners, or like, don't they know? Because Sweetie's mom clearly wasn't on board with it, but Ashish's parents were. Ashish's parents are the more affluent family. They have more money, they have more influence, you know, and stop me if I'm going like too far.
No. I was gonna say, I think it's interesting that you took it to. Of course, they would pick a girl who is overweight because there's less chance of them fucking and this becoming problematic. Where Sweetie verbalizes, I'm not gonna put out just because I'm a fat girl. So it's almost like
She immediately
you
shut
can't
down.
win. You
Immediately.
can't win. Like
Yeah,
Sweetie.
but I also think that like he was a little hoe. So I don't think it mattered. Like he would have had sex with anyone. The only reason he didn't have sex with Sweetie was because Sweetie was still a virgin.
And then my last question was just like a fun, like, what would be like 2 arranged dates that you think your parents would force you to go on if you were in an arranged date scenario? Like, what would your parents' version of like a safe arranged date?
I feel like my mom would send me on a group walking bird watching tour. You know, like like a group of like 20 people going to like El Bosque Seco de Guanica, or you know what I mean? Like and with like binoculars, and we're like part of this like tour group. I feel like she would send me on something like that. My dad, I think, would have sent me. I don't think my dad would have sent me, like he would have shut the whole thing down. I mean, I don't know that like I was like dating someone in school, but like we didn't go on dates because my dad was like, you already see him at school. Why do you need to go on a date with? I don't understand. You already see him every day. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't really date until I got to college. But yeah, so I don't know that my dad would have sent me on any date. But yeah, my mom would have sent me on something like super nerdy and like group setting during the daylight, like going bird watching or like following the trails of the turtle nests at the beach, you know, like like one of those things with like a tour guide.
No, my mom would have shut it down too. My mom worked
She
at
would have
this.
caught you. Should have caught you. The only way your mom would have found out you were
She
dating
would
someone
have
is
caught
she'd
us,
call you.
but like really, she couldn't have. The only thing is I underestimated how deep her connections went. She was working at a pharmaceutical company. She had a really good friend, and his wife was a teacher at my high school when I had my first open boyfriend. And she saw me making out with this kid, went and told her husband about it, and then her husband told my mom about it, and that's how I got found out. Now, my mom would not be on board with it. It would all be like the sneaking around, but none of like the, the parent co-conspirators. It would not be anything like that.
You'd be like, I'm just tutoring.
Yes. Something like that. Thanks for picking this, Shai. This was a pretty fun book to end the year with and talk about with. Thank you so much for watching up until this point. If you liked it, make sure to like and leave us a comment in the comment box below. That's it for 2021 and Only Lovers Book Club. We will be back in 2022. I'm the first one picking a book, and it's going to be something pretty radical. Until then, make sure that you're wearing your masks, wash your hands, and just make sure that you're taking care. And we will see you in the next one.
Thank you for hanging out with us. You can support Only Lovers Book Club by dropping some change in our tip jar and buying some books with our bookshop link. You can find us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club, and from there, find our individual accounts and projects. Feel free to favorite or rate us if that's an option for you, but always make sure to like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode.